All right, let's dive into a theory that sounds like it's been ripped straight out of a sci-fi movie. But here's the kicker. Its creator, a French physicist, swears it's a fundamental law of the universe. So, what is this all about?
I want you to imagine something for a second. What if there was another version of you, an energetic clone, that exists just outside of our normal flow of time, and its whole job is to scout ahead, to navigate the maze of all your potential tomorrows, and then send back intel to help you pick the absolute best path? It's a pretty wild idea, right? Well, that's exactly the premise we're unpacking today.
So this concept, it's called the quantum double. And no, we're not talking about a physical twin. Think of it more as an energetic, or as he calls it, an undulatory part of you. It operates in these tiny, imperceptible slivers of time, and its mission is to explore all the possible futures, repair the ones that don't look so good, and then feed that best-case scenario back to you, right here in the present.
Now get this, the person who came up with this isn't some New Age guru. The architect of this entire theory is Dr. Jean Pierre Garnier Malet, a physicist with a doctorate in fluid mechanics. He first put this idea together way back in 1988, and he claims his theory of the doubling of time and space can explain pretty much everything, from the movement of planets all the way down to how our own thoughts work.
Okay, so how on earth is this supposed second self even supposed to work? Let's get into the mechanics of how Garnier Malet says time really operates, because it's not what you think.
So this is where things get really weird and challenge our whole perception of time. You know, we usually think of time as this straight line, right? A road from the past to the future. But Garnier Malet says, nope, it's more like a branching river. In these incredibly tiny, imperceptible moments he calls temporal openings, time actually splits. So while we're living our life here in the present, our double is out there simultaneously exploring all those different streams of the future.
You can almost think of it as your own personal advanced scout. It's out there experiencing the consequences of all your different choices and actions before you even make them. It's basically beta testing your future to find the best possible route for you to take. The whole goal is to steer you away from the dead ends and point you toward the most awesome outcomes.
And this brings us to one of the key ideas here. Garnier Malet says we're all dual beings. We've got our physical body, our corpuscular self, right here, right now. But at the same time, we have this energetic or undulatory body, and that is our double. This double uses its unique perspective outside of our linear time to act like a cosmic GPS. And how does it communicate? Not with words, but through those gut feelings, those sudden brilliant ideas, and those super vivid dreams that just seem to pop out of nowhere.
So this all sounds really theoretical and kind of out there, I know. But Garnier Malet insists this is actually a practical tool you can use. So the big question is, how do you actually tap into this cosmic GPS? Well, the answer apparently is all about what happens when you go to sleep.
More specifically, the real key is a phase called paradoxical sleep, which you probably know as REM sleep. You know, it's that fascinating state where your body is pretty much paralyzed, but your brain is lit up like a Christmas tree, just firing on all cylinders. According to this theory, that is the prime time for information to be exchanged between you and your double. It's the moment your energetic self is free to go out and do its thing.
Garnier Malet actually lays out a simple 4-step process for you to try every night. First, just relax. Calm your mind, let go of the day. Second, you ask a really clear, specific question to your double about a problem you're facing. Third, and this is super important, you just trust. You let go of the outcome and let your double handle it. And then finally, the next day, you just listen. You pay attention to new ideas, dreams you remember, or a really strong gut feeling. Now, for this whole exchange to actually work, the theory says you need to be in a very specific mindset. You have to go into it with no will, which means you're not trying to force your favorite answer. You need no fear or anxiety about the problem. You need no doubt that the process is actually working. And finally, you have to have a sense of benevolence, making sure that the solution you're looking for is good for everyone involved, not just you.
Okay, so we've got the theory and we've got the how-to guide. But this, of course, leads us to the biggest question of them all. Is any of this actually based in real, verifiable science? Let's get into the great debate.
Let's just cut to the chase. The short answer? No. It is absolutely not accepted by the mainstream scientific community. But, you know, the story is a little more complicated than just writing it off completely.
So on one hand, Garnier Malet has actually published his work. This quote here, it's from an abstract in the American Institute of Physics conference proceedings. And in it, he makes some absolutely enormous claims. He's saying his theory explains dark matter and dark energy, and that it lets him calculate fundamental constants of the universe from scratch.
I mean, these are bold, Nobel Prize-level claims, if they're true. But then, on the other hand, you have the reaction from pretty much the entire physics community, which is perfectly summed up by this one comment on Reddit's Ask Physics forum. The general consensus from physicists who've actually looked at his work is that the math just doesn't make sense. They call it a form of numerology, just finding connections that aren't really there, and that he's mixing up real physics terms with metaphysical ideas.
So let's just break it down side by side. The case for this theory really rests on the fact that it was published in a conference proceeding, and it makes these huge, ambitious claims, including supposedly predicting the arrival of some planetoids in our solar system. The case against, though, is pretty strong. It hasn't passed the really tough peer review process of a major journal, it's pretty much dismissed as pseudoscience, and it relies on ideas, like a double, that we just can't test with today's science.
So with this huge divide between what the theory claims and what science says, where does that leave us? I mean, is there anything valuable we can actually take away from this whole quantum double idea?
Well, maybe the real value here isn't about whether it's a scientific fact, but about its power as a metaphor. If you strip away all the complicated equations and the quantum jargon, what you're left with is basically a structured guide for connecting with your own intuition. It's a framework for quieting your conscious mind, asking for help with a problem, and then just listening for those subtle answers that often bubble up from deep inside.
And really, that's the thought I want to leave you with. Whether you see this as a literal description of how reality works or just a really compelling story, the quantum double theory challenges us to do one thing: listen. What if the most powerful guide to the future isn't some double off in another dimension, but that deep, quiet, intuitive wisdom we all have inside of us, just waiting for us to finally pay attention? Thanks for watching.